Hello and greetings, my friend. Welcome to day 19 here in the 24 days of building beautiful strength. I'm Matt Schifferly, and today's video may be one of, if not the most important video in the entire series, because we're talking about the nuanced details on what goes into creating the specific stimulus for hypertrophy and building muscle. And there's a lot of kind of almost debate when it comes to, well, how do you create a stimulus for hypertrophy? Some people say it's all about resistance and how much do you lift. Some people say it's all about volume. Some people say it's all about technique and stuff. And the fact of the matter is all of these things, because you're not going to build muscle just because you do the right routine, or you do the right number of repetitions, or even the right exercise. Instead, what we're trying to do is, as I call it, challenge your muscular work capacity. And what that means is it's kind of like thinking of your muscle has a bit of like a life bar. Think of like the old Street Fighter video games and stuff I grew up playing and stuff, where your character had a life bar, and if you got hit too much or with too much intensity, your life bar drained to zero and you got knocked out. We're essentially trying to kind of knock out your muscles or burn out your muscles. And I'm going to explain kind of how this works in a little bit of a demonstration here with push-ups on my favorite toys, my NOSC suspension straps. So right off the bat, we're utilizing, of course, the muscles in the push chain, chest, shoulders, triceps, and we're going with our classic push-up. It has a given amount of resistance, and I'm going to do some degree of volume here. And the amount of work that my muscles perform in the exercise is influencing how much I'm essentially draining that muscular life bar, if you will. If I'm going with a deeper range of motion, my muscles have to work harder, so that drains it quicker. If I have better engagement of the muscles, so I'm purposely turning the muscles on with better tension control, that does that further as well. If I utilize a more strict technique, so the muscle is forced to work harder, that's going to drain it as well. But it's also about how much I'm pushing myself closer to my muscular limit. So if I'm just cranking out reps and I stop, that leaves plenty of like juice in the tank, if you will. So that bar is not going to drain all that quickly from one set to the other, which there are times and places that's a good thing. But since we're trying to essentially knock the muscle out, for the most part, we want to drive into those hard reps, still keeping strictness of technique, making the muscles get drained pretty quick. So it's not as simple as just take everything to failure and you're fine, because sometimes if we just push everything we've got, then you're going to have a lot less energy in subsequent sets, which is a training strategy for burning things out faster. But know that you're not going to get as much practice. You're not going to spend as much time working the muscle, which can be good or bad depending on your circumstances. Just know that you don't have to go all out all the time. You just have to get to this point a couple of times at some point in the workout. Resistance also plays a big influential role in essentially draining that proverbial life bar, because when you have more resistance, or you're making your muscles carry more tension, that's kind of like your character in the video game getting hit with a 5-move combo or a lot more of a harder technique. So you're just draining that proverbial life bar more with each repetition. So you can drain it through having a lighter weight for more volume, or a heavier weight for less volume per set. You're still achieving the same fundamental result. It's just which way do you want to go about it. Having a little bit less weight or resistance and more reps, you're emphasizing endurance more, and more resistance, more tension, you're going to build more strength. Lastly, don't feel like your goal is to completely exhaust out the muscle or feel like you're leaving the gym fully drained out. a lot of the scientific research has shown that yes, you do need to use up a good degree of the energy in the muscles, and you do want to have a good amount of effort at least a couple of times in your workout. But it also suggests that pushing beyond that point of fatigue may not really create more of a stimulus for hypertrophy. Guys who basically take a couple of good hard sets to that high fatigue point build roughly the same amount as if I did a lot of like drop sets, a lot of pause rep training, force negatives, and that sort of thing. So even though there does seem to be the need to drain that life bar, there seems to be this point where going beyond that and creating more fatigue may greatly increase the cost of the workout and the amount of stress on your body and mind and potentially lifestyle through just lots of long sessions, but it may not really amplify that stimulus all that more. And that's why I'm not a fan of following a dogmatic obedience to some sort of program of this is how many sets you do, how many reps you do, because you never train the same body twice. Some days that life bar is going to be a lot bigger. So you're going to need more volume or more resistance if you're feeling strong that day in order to effectively drain it down enough to stimulate hypertrophy. But other days, you're just not going to have as much in the tank, so it doesn't make sense to just force yourself through slogging volume or a level of resistance that can really tax your joints. So be adaptive about it, and when you find yourself getting sets nice and consistent, if you really drained your muscle, you should have one set where you're just kind of, oh gosh, okay, yeah, that's done. That's cooked, that's effectively drained. Could be after a few sets, could be after 4 or 5, but that's the point at which you're like, all right, I'm finished, job is done. Understanding this fundamental approach towards building the effective stimulus gives you lots of options. You may find it's easier to reach that point with more volume. You may find it's easier with more intensity. You may find it you can do it better with some tools than for others. Like I can certainly achieve that degree of muscular fatigue much easier and faster with calisthenics than I could, for example, on machines, which is why I was more successful with calisthenics. So listen to your experience and your feedback and play around with the variables however you see fit and adapt it according to your circumstances. Don't feel like there's one correct way to work out in order to potentially build muscle, and that way you get to do what's best for you rather than following some dogmatic approach and just hoping it somehow works out through sheer luck. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to be sharing with you why a lot of people in pursuing that objective go about things completely bass-ackwards and what's going to really change your entire approach to strength training for building beautiful strength. So I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Be fit and live free.